Hello and welcome back to this course. Today we are going to discuss about the static keyword. The static keyword is mainly used in Java for memory management. It is a keyword that are used for share the some variables or methods of a given class. Now when you create a static variable in your class, then that variable allocates the memory only one time when you run that program. So in this way, static keyword is used for the memory management. So we can use our static keyword with variables that we also call the class variables. We can use the static keyword with our methods. We call that methods the class methods. We can use the static keyword with the block. We are going to discuss about the block in this video. And at the end, we can also use the static keyword with the nested classes. Nested classes means the class within a class. We have not yet discussed about the nested classes, but shortly we are going to discuss about the nested classes, and we have a better concept about the static nested classes in the nested classes video basically. And what are the advantages of using the static keyword? The static variable allocates memory only once in the class area at the time of the class loading. As I have explained before, that the static variable allocates the memory only once when you start your program. And using the static variable, we make our program more efficient. How we can make our program more efficient? Let's discuss an example that where it is used. Suppose we want to store record of all students of any school. In this case, student ID is unique for every student, but the school name is common for all. When we create a static variable as school name, then only once memory is allocated, otherwise it allocates a memory space each time for every student. Now, I will explain this example. For example, we are creating the management system for a school, and we know that there are thousands of students in that school, and every student have a different roll number, different, you can say, name, etc. like that, but the name of school is same for every student. So what we do, in the class of student, we make the school name variable static, so that the static variable, which is the school name, allocates the memory only once. In this way, we are not wasting our memory, we are saving our memory, because the name of the school is allocate its memory only once. So that's why we use the static keyword in most of the times for the memory saving. Now look at its syntax. First of all, public static name. This is the class variable, you can say the static variable. We use the static keyword before the name of the variable, and we make that variable static. And to make our function or method static, we use the static keyword like public static void function name, and we use the static before the return type, and in this way we can make our variable and function static. So let's create our program in our NetBeans to use static keyword with variable, method, block, and inner classes. And now for example, I am going to create a class here like class student, and here I am going to create some instance variables like string name and int roll number, and at the end the name of the school, you can say I make these variables private first, like private, and this is also private. We always have to follow the best practices whenever we write up a program. So now I'm going to type here private static string school name. Okay, so now we have two instance variables and one class variables, which is a static variable. I type here static class variable. Okay, now I am going to create the constructor for this class. So I type here student, and I just type here, you can say, string name and int roll number, and you can say that this dot name equals to name, and this dot roll number equals to the roll number. Okay, now you may got a question that why we are not initializing the school name in the constructor. So whenever we create the object of the class, the constructor is called. We know that. But before this code, we have learned that the static variable is single and is created once for all the class, like school name. So this is not a good practice. We can definitely initialize it in our constructor, but we will also have to follow the best practices of programming. So that's why we are not going to initialize our static variable in the constructor, we are going to use the initialization block. As we have discussed in our slide that we can use the static with the variable, method and the block. So now we are going to use the block which is going to initialize the static variable. So I type here static, then I start the block. This is what we call the static block or initialization block. I can type here school name equals to, you can say like that, allied. So in this way we can initialize our static variables. We have used the static with our variable, and we have used static with the initialization block. Now we are going to make the function static. I am not going to create the getters and setters. You can definitely write here the getters and setters. To save the time, I am not going to write here getters and setters. I type here public static void, and the name is information, and in this method I am going to type a single statement, system.out.println, and you can say that this school is the biggest in this city, like that. This you can say. We have to understand the static right now. Okay, so we have used the static with our variable, we have used the static with the initialization block, we use static with our methods. So I think I have to create the getters and setters. So I create them with the code import. So I right click and click on the insert code and getters. I create the getters for all these. I create the setters here. So I click on the insert code setters. I'm not going to create the setter for the school name and generate. Okay, so now we also have the setters and the getters. Now if I go to the main function, I'm going to create a I'm going to create the object of the class student. So I type here student s is equal to new student John. You can say the roll number is like 300 for an instance. Okay, and now if I type here s dot, you can see that I can access all the getters and the setters for the student class, but I have also created the static method in my class with the name information. If I type here you can say information like this, and if I run this program now, you can see this school is the biggest school in the city. But this is not the good practice to call the static method. You can see here accessing static method information. What is the best way to call the static method is by using the class name. So I move it and type here student dot. You can see I can access the information as well as the get static school name, and the get static school name is basically also static. Here you can see here I can access all the static members of the class after the class name, like this. You can see information, and now if I run this program, you will see the same message, but this is a good practice right now. In our very first program, the first program to print hello world on the screen, we have discussed about the system.out, and there I told you that system is the class and out is the static member of that class. So I hope you understand now that how static works. Now you may got a question that the school name is also static here. So why we are not able to access this system.school name here? Because this class variable is private right now, and we cannot access the private member outside the class. If I change it to public like here, and now if you go to the main function and type here student dot, now I can also access the school name. So in this way you can access all the static members of this class basically. So I hope you understand about the how static keyword is used and why we use this static keyword. We are also going to use our static keyword in our final project, where we have to access the account number basically of the user from our main class, and we can access that through the static keyword basically. So I hope you understand. We have also read about the inner classes in our slides. So how we can create an inner static class. Inner static class means creating the static class inside a class. We cannot create the outer class static. Like if I type here static, I cannot create that. This causes an error on the screen. Okay, static is not allowed here. So we can only use, if I type here public static like that, you can see an error. Static is not allowed here basically. So I move inside the body of the class. I'm going to create an inner class here. I type here class, you can say John for an instance. And now this is the inner class. You can say this is the inner class of the student class. Now I can also make this class public, private, protected. You can say like that. You can also make this class private here. And for this, and you can also make that class static like this. So we can also make our inner class static. So I hope you understand about this static keyword, that how it is used and where it is used. And okay, so one more thing here, we can also write more than one static blocks. Like I type here again static, and can write another static block here, and again I can initialize my static variables like this. I type here allied2 for example. So in this way you can write multiple static blocks in your program, and this time the value of allied school name will be allied2 because this static block is replacing this static block. So I hope you understand the static keyword. At the end I summarize that static keyword is used for the memory management, and we can also use the static keyword whenever we want to call the member just after the class name. You can see that the main method, like public static void main, the main function is also static here, because if the main function is not static, then first of all JVM basically Java has to create the instance, and with the help of that instance we have to access the main function. But this is not a good approach. That's why make our main function static, so that we can use this main function without creating the instance of any class. So I hope you understand. So that's it for this video. I will see you in next video.